Welcome to the Career Wanderlust podcast, your compass for new career horizons. Today, we are talking with Alan Locher. Alan has spent the last 3 decades working in communications and marketing in the film, TV, and tourism industries. Alan began his career as a page for the ABC TV before joining the Walt Disney Studios in film promotion, where he marketed more than 200 films. From there, he spent time on the agency side with Rubenstein as a director before moving on to Procter& Gamble, where he led the PR team for the soap operas As the World Turns and Guiding Light. Since then, Alan has held VP level sales and marketing roles with On Location Tours and TrueScope. Now, at the start of the pandemic, Alan created the Locher Room. It's a virtual talk show on YouTube featuring celebrity guests from daytime, primetime, and film. And Alan has produced more than 450 shows to date and raised more than $130,000 for various charities. It's really amazing. And I'm really excited to learn more. Alex, thank you for joining us on the Career Wanderlust podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Jolie. Great to be here.
That's great to have you. And I love all the things you've done in your career and the industries you've been in. I just following your passions and how you've kind of walked through the process is amazing. I'm wondering if there's any specific advice or career belief or something that you've carried with you that has really helped you throughout your career.
And, I would say starting with, and I don't even know if it was something I learned in college or somebody recommended, but internships for everybody in whatever
Right.
field you're going into. Those internships, I think, really opened many doors for me.
Mhm.
It really depends. You mentioned I started as a page. And being in the building at ABC Television opened opportunities for working on numerous projects that ABC was doing at the time.
Mhm.
Hollywood Squares in New York, Joel Siegel's Road to the Academy Awards. So I had opportunities, but I was also somebody who was really interested in being in the entertainment business.
Mhm.
So if somebody took that page job and their ultimate goal wasn't to be in the TV industry,
It's not the
they
right
didn't,
thing.
it wasn't the right thing and they didn't pursue. I just watched, I asked questions. I wanted to be there.
So you threw yourself in basically when you were
I
there.
basically did. I was a sophomore in college when that job opportunity came to me. And I'll tell you how that came to me because I think it's important to say the things that you want to do out loud. And I was going to college, sophomore in college, working at a health club in New Jersey, and a woman at the pool at the health club just asked me what I wanted to do with my life.
Mhm.
And I really was going to school, I think, for accounting at the time, for business. But I said out loud that my ultimate would be to work in television. And somebody overheard me say that at the pool. And she worked in HR at ABC and basically changed the course of my life.
I love that so much. You are so right. Speaking our truth out loud, speaking our desires out loud, there's something that happens that helps the universe bring it all together. And I love that you bring this up because I've actually had a couple of people recently who were guests on this Career Wonderlist podcast who spoke out loud what they were hoping for their next move or for their next project, if you will. And within weeks of talking with me on the podcast, that thing arrived in their life. And then they even emailed. I feel like speaking it out loud brought it full circle. So you're
Y-
100% right.
Yeah, it did. Also, for me, I grew up watching As
Right.
the World Turns and Guiding Light, the two shows that I worked on, because my mother learned to speak English watching them. So they were
Oh,
always on in my house.
isn't that amazing?
Graduating college, it was the first job I applied to, but I didn't have the PR experience. And I didn't have a job in mind. I just wanted to work on those two shows.
That's where you were interested in. That was your interest. And so basically your interest in the soap operas, which led you to get this page position, essentially, led you to your career. So you weren't even interested in PR and communications to begin with. It just
I
happened.
wasn't. I studied communications at Fairleigh Dickinson University in New Jersey,
Mhm.
but I was not introduced to public relations. it really was the page job got me to work. One of the roles as a page was to work on the morning show. At the time, that was Regis Philbin and Kathy Ledford's show, which was only a local show in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut.
Oh, at the
And
time it was
then
local.
it was, yeah, it was just local. And
Wow.
then I was basically hired before I even had my diploma from college to work on that show and to help launch it into syndication through the Walt Disney Company.
So what got your interest in the communication side? How did that kind of snowball into it, would you say?
I think I changed to communications in college once I got the page job, I would say.
Mhm.
Can't fully remember, but I thought I was going to go into accounting. I had no connections to the entertainment world. I watched TV as a kid growing up, but yeah, I really didn't have family in the business. I didn't have any friends. Luckily, I said out loud what I wanted to do. And Daphne Bowe is her name. I haven't been able to find her, the woman who worked in HR for ABC.
Oh, that's very cool. On internships, it makes me think, I think that's really great advice, even if you are someone maybe who has more experience, but want to make a change too. Have you experienced that with anyone? Do you know people who have gone into internships later in life to help them make a change into something new? I'm curious if that might be a nice
I
opening.
I do, and I'm blanking on who that is. I do feel that I have known some people who have gone into them. Unfortunately, I think it's very difficult today with the remote and the hybrid work
Mhm.
situations for the younger generation to get that hands-on experience.
Yeah,
But I still think they're important. If you can find them, they open doors that what you learn by being in the space, in the room.
absolutely. Absolutely.
The room where it happens.
The room where it there's a lot to be said about the room where it happens.
Seriously.
Well, it's a true story. Really, even in my own recruiting experience, just being in the room with the recruiters and hearing them, how they talk to the people, how they talk to their clients, it's invaluable. So yes, being in the room where it happens is incredibly important. And that is something for people entering the workforce. That's another layer of trying to figure things out because so many positions are remote now. So yeah, finding those internal positions where they can be around a team is going to make a huge difference in their career trajectory, I would say. Definitely. And now,
It's something I treasure because I really did have unique opportunities
well, it
because
opened up all these doors for you, didn't it? I mean, didn't
it
this
really
like
did. I
lead?
mean, my first internship was Regis and Kathy Lee when it was local. So I made an impression that they hired me right out of college.
Yeah.
And then because I was working for Disney for their show, another role opened in the movie division. And that's where I learned PR. I moved into the movie division and just worked my way up from entry level to a senior publicist in charge of a movie, the national and local press for a movie premiere for Pocahontas for 100,000 people.
So I'm curious, out of all the movies, because we said you did about 250 or
Oh,
something, what was your favorite launch or project that you worked on and why?
Pocahontas is
Pocahontas.
pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Just being able to, we built a movie theater on the Great Lawn in Central Park.
Oh, wow. Oh, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah. So
incredible.
3 huge screens. It was an incredible event, but I was really luck in the sense that I joined the Walt Disney Studios at the beginning of the renaissance of their animation. I worked on The
Mhm.
Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast and Lion King, Aladdin.
Oh,
I was
that's
there,
huge. Yeah.
Sister Act, Pretty Woman, Dead Poet Society.
These are the
Some
movies I grew
really
up with. Yes.
correct, amazing. What's Love got to do with it with the Tina Turner
Mm.
biopic? But that was luck more than I was just there at the right time.
So during that time, what would you say one of your greatest lessons while working for the Walt Disney Company? What were one of those?
Oh, and then I'm glad you asked because that is early on. Lisa Halliday, who was one of my bosses, a dear friend today, suggested basically write everything down. Have a notebook, write everything down, And I did that really throughout my entire career. I have always had a notebook because it's to be held accountable. It's also a great memory tool for you.
Great memory
Way
tools. I'm
before,
envious right now.
way before we had mobile devices and our cell phones where we
Mhm.
could put that information in. But it was like if your boss tells you to do A, B, and C, you write down what they've asked you to do, write
Mhm.
down, I don't know, when you mailed something out or when you took it to the executive or you handed it to this person so that you have a record and it just helped keep track
Yes.
of everything you did. And not that they were holding you accountable like you had to write it down. It was really just even as I got into PR, it's like you write down the person's name from this newspaper, the reporter's phone number, their email, just so you go back
Mhm.
and you find when you're thinking about pitching this story that, oh, that reporter did, you could look in one of those books and find it.
Oh, I think this is invaluable advice because A, we don't remember everything. We think that we're going to. We always think we're going to remember, and we do not, especially as the years go by. So if you have notebooks from earlier in your career of all of those things, that is a treasure trove of information, contacts, insights into yourself. I think that's
Yeah,
brilliant.
true.
Not only that, but writing things down is very powerful. It's very powerful in making things happen. And just from, like you were saying, writing down what your boss is asking you to do or what have you. You can have that in your head, but when you write things down, I just feel like this magic kind of happens. And I say this because I was always told to write things down growing up and I resisted it. I was very resistant to the writing of things down. I really
That's
felt
funny.
that it was all in my head.
I'll
And
remember.
I just didn't need to do that. But once I started writing things down, oh man, everything changes. Everything productivity skyrockets, but also it's like that magic as well, right? The things that you want to bring into your life or you want to do with your life. Having it written down, it brings it in so much faster, so much smoother. Things are happening. And then not only did that, the memories. Sometimes I'll find things that I wrote down from when my children were younger or from earlier in my career that I'll just find these random things and I'm like, why didn't I write more? This is such
Yeah.
gold. Why is there only 2 pages? Should have
Well, your boss may ask you, even sometimes whoever called for them, or they might have, who did you speak to get me this list or whatever it was? And you're not going to remember when you speak to
Mhm.
400 people in a week or something like that. And you write it down. I spoke to this person on this date. They told me this. And it's also just helps cover your backside, your butt. Like
Right, right.
protecting yourself because you're in a when you have a good job and you're working for a big company, there's accountability on things and it helps you to be accountable in some respect to yourself.
Absolutely. And actually, it reminds me of a really key piece of advice that someone gave as even as a manager or just working in your office with a team that when you are writing things down, you have perhaps you have a little section for each person that you work with, and you can add things
Mm.
there as well. Good things that they did, positive things that you want to reinforce them on, or things that maybe you want to remind them to try and do a little different. Or, but it's just like a running, a something that you can have that it gives you a reminder of all the things happening within your team as well, and the
I
people
love
like
that.
their birthdays and like their kids, like all the little things for you to remember. So I really liked that as well. Yeah,
I think that's a fantastic idea
yeah.
because I wish you had told me that a long time ago. I think that
Your notebooks. See, and I'm gonna add
yeah.
stickers to my notebooks.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic because there are times where you want to remember what somebody who worked for you did or help encourage them. That's I think a lot of companies do things differently today, but there wasn't a lot of I think training. I was somebody who worked my way up really young at Disney. It literally was my right out of college job.
Yeah,
And
amazing.
because I worked hard, I was promoted, but I was not given the tools to be a manager per se. And I
Mm.
think a lot of companies do that today where they help guide you through management training courses. I think back then it was slightly different.
I agree. The professional development has upped its game with a lot of
Yeah.
companies have upped their game with that quite a bit. It is vital. It's incredibly important. It makes a big difference.
That's not something your college curriculum teaches you.
Mm-mm.
How to manage team members, how to speak to people, how to do all of that. So it would have been really helpful. And it
Yeah.
was. I received it later, but it would have been helpful at that impressionable young age.
I agree. And I think that's why we have such a wide range of types of managers because that wasn't something that was a standard, if you will. And it's still not a standard, but it is much more prevalent now,
It
thankfully.
is, yeah.
Because
But
we,
I like how you said that delicately,
we
of a wide range of management, because yeah, not all managers treated people how we really should be treating people.
exactly, exactly. And I love that we're learning a lot more about how to manage people effectively and productively, as well as emotionally, the whole package. And so we're getting much better managers through the ranks through these trainings. So
Absolutely.
now, what about a story? Because I love a good story. Is there a story that happened in your career that ended up being an impactful lesson for you?
I was trying to think of that. I don't know. It was interesting. I grew up as a fan of Guiding Light and As the World Turns. I knew a lot about the show. I knew a lot about the people. I had met a lot of people prior to ever working there because of the fact that I watched and was a fan. And that
Mhm.
actually helped when I got in the door, but it was difficult to leave that behind because now I was in a professional role. So separating your sort of personal feelings from your
Yeah.
professional feelings, I think we all have to take
How do you
that
do
into
that?
account.
Yeah. Is there anything that helps you with
Um,
that?
I think it helped that I was told in some respect that
Mhm.
I needed to do that because
Mhm.
I was now in a different position to take that into account.
Uh-huh.
There are other factors involved. And I think sometimes we have to separate the personal from the professional, whatever role that is, whether you're a fan of something or not. You might not agree in whatever role you have
Mhm.
today. Your boss tells you A, B, and C, and you don't necessarily agree on a personal level, let's say, but professionally, that's
Do
your,
your best job.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
your job.
I'm sure a lot of people deal with that in this industry if they're working for agencies, and sometimes they're going to get maybe an account they're not 100% crazy about, but they still have to do the best job.
Absolutely. Yeah. I
Yeah.
spent after Disney, I spent a year at a agency and had to have multiple accounts. And they didn't thrill me, let's say,
Mhm.
but I still was responsible for them and had to
Did you have
succeed.
any did you have any tricks that helped you do your best job with an account that didn't thrill you?
I don't think I had trick agents. The agency was very different life
Mhm.
than I had experienced at Disney. Having multiple, I working for Disney, I worked on a different movie almost every week. It was insane. And I went to
Yeah.
the movies almost 3 or 4 nights a week because we would have
I love
screening.
that.
It was a crazy time
Yeah.
at, I think, in the entire movie industry. I think Disney, when I was there, we did about 60 movies a year. I don't think
So
a
much.
movie company does maybe 10 to 15. And that might even be a lot in the environment we are
Mhm.
today.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
that's a
yeah,
whirlwind.
yeah, the agency, you had to juggle, not to, because you have 5 different bosses. If you have
Right.
5 clients, you have 5
Yeah.
different bosses who are expecting things. So that was learning that process. Disney, it was the same boss,
Mhm.
but we were working on a different project
Yeah.
where the higher ups had to answer to those different executive producer
Yep.
on this film, that film. But when it's a client, they're coming to you. Where's
Mhm.
my press for this? That was definitely juggling some stuff.
Now, what about a career-related challenge? What's been one of your biggest challenges, and how did you overcome it?
I don't know if it's a biggest challenge. It was interesting going from the Walt Disney Company. So imagine picking up the telephone, calling media that you're pitching. Hi, it's Alan Locher from the Walt Disney Studios. Can you do A, B, and C for me? And then you go to As the World Turns and Guiding Light and you make those same phone calls. You do not get the same response. And those shows had been on the air for I grew up watching
Long
them
time.
and
Yeah.
started working there in 1990, and they were on the air for about 12 to 13 years after I was with them for about 12 to 13 years when they went off the air. So they had been on 60 or so years at that point, and it was tough to try to generate press, but it
Mhm.
challenged me to be creative in
Right.
finding unique ways. But it was definitely a huge wake up call to really feel that difference of when I would pick up the phone and say it was the Walt Disney Company and when I would say I was calling from As the World Turns or Guiding Light.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. It's like you said, it's very true. That's what our challenges do, right? They set us up in a different way. So that I'm sure that wasn't easy, but the fact that you had to get more creative and come up with different kinds of pitches, I bet that just added to your overall experience and knowledge in it.
It did. But I have friends who worked at various shows who would always welcome those phone calls, but then say no, thank you. But they were really sweet about it. And what's really frustrating today, there are only three shows on network TV and one on streaming. But because I think of probably there's less than there were, like there were still 8 to 10 shows on the air at that time. There's a lot of mainstream press that these four shows are getting today, much more than they were getting back when I worked on those
Oh,
shows.
interesting. That's
It's fascinating to
yeah.
me. Like People Magazine is covering so many things. And even with the Locker Room, I've sadly been some of the last interviews that people
For
I
some of
worked
these
with have
people.
done because they have passed
Oh,
on. But
ah,
and then people are
mhm.
being covered in People Magazine, and then yeah, it's interesting to see the cycle. We're getting a new soap in January on network TV, which
Oh, a new
there
one.
hasn't been an yeah, Beyond the
In
Gate
ages. Wow, that's a big
ages.
deal, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, so
it
tell
really
us about the
is.
locker room. Tell us a little about the locker room. Like, yeah, tell us when you started, what your inspiration was, and where people can find. Give us the lowdown on the locker room.
Y s my last day at On Location Tours, which was a TV and movie tour company, was March 20th. We basically were all home
20.
around the same
Yeah.
of 2020. March
Yeah.
20th, was the last day I got paid. It was a tourism company, so that was the first thing to shut
Done.
down
Yeah.
because tourism in New York came to a screeching halt. I, like probably every other person in America, was on social media, and I kept seeing everybody on Instagram doing interviews. And it happened to be April 1st. And as a PR person, it's in your head. I knew that April 2nd was As the World Turns' television anniversary.
Mhm.
So I thought, hey, maybe I'll reach out to a couple actors who I'm friends with. Would they want to cheer people up? And we'll do something on Instagram. And at the time, because uh, the pandemic had just begun, Instagram was only allowing one on one interviews. They eventually changed it as the pandemic grew on and people wanted to have more people in those interviews. But the first person I reached out to was an actor, Michael Park, and he suggested that we do it on YouTube on a streaming platform.
Please.
And I couldn't get it up for April 2nd, but I got the first show premiered on April 3rd.
Great.
And I really did not have an intent. My idea was to basically cheer people up. And as I planned, I think, 2 shows initially, Guiding Light and As the World Turns, with about 5 actors each. Um, a lot of people tuned in, and people started asking me to do other other actors.
Mhm.
And probably late April, I reached out to Susan Lucci and she said yes. And thinking that she said yes just opened the door for me. And we talked about this on your other driving after 40. But my mother always taught me, if you don't ask, the only answer they can give you is a no. And Susan Lucci said yes. And I just kept going. And actually, it's now over 500 episodes.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's amazing,
Yeah,
Alan. That's incredible. And I think about all those conversations 'cause there's so much that you learn from having these conversations yourself too. It adds to your own self. And this is what I learned through this process is right. You start it because you want to help other people. You want to bring some joy. You want to, I don't know, just do something to help. And when you start these things to help other people, you don't realize at the time that you're going to be helping yourself because it really is incredibly rewarding to do.
totally. So there's two things I want to point out. We started the conversation about my page job and working for Regis and Kathy Lee. I never could have imagined that what I learned then would come back to my life all these years later because I
Right.
learned an immense amount watching them to host an hour-long program live every day, being prepared, doing your research. It really it surprised me. And then I initially thought it was really interviews when you watch Entertainment Tonight or The View or Jimmy Kimmel, they're like 3 to 7 minutes. And I thought, great, it's gonna be sort of fluff and cheer people up. But I just started doing them at an hour long. And if we all just listen, there's so much to gain from other people's stories. And that's been really hearing the responses from people who tune in and what they learned or and yes, it's nothing I
It's
could have ever
incredible.
imagined
Yeah.
creating. And also knowing that I reconnected a lot of people with each other at the beginning because people hadn't seen each other or talked to each other since our shows went off the air. And not for any reason that they disliked each other. Our lives go on.
Exactly. No, exactly. Probably don't have any idea what kind of connections you made through those things that people have carried on. I guarantee you there's so many
I
ripples that you've created that are happening that you don't even realize, which
I
is really cool
believe
to think
it,
about. Yeah.
because I randomly will be somewhere or hear from somebody who said, you don't know what you did by bringing this person back into my life, or yeah, just many things. And it's looking for a job now. And that's hard because I don't want to give this up. I know it's a small community, but it's a community that I built. And I think the people who come to this place feel that it's a safe space. They get to
Mhm.
talk about, and it's not just soaps, but it began with people's love of daytime, but
Mhm.
it's love of daytime. I do a lot of socially relevant conversations. An actress who I worked with on Guiding Light had breast cancer, and now it has come back, and we are going to do a show for breast cancer awareness.
Good.
So like there's a lot of opportunity to do good things
Good.
and
Yeah,
educate people about things that they might not have normally been introduced to.
absolutely. And also on another side note too, the fact that this is something that you built during a time during the pandemic when work was pulled out from underneath our feet. And it was this passion project that brought this joy and not only to your life but to so many other people's lives, but you learn so much through this process and it hones your skills. And I think that when we are in times of in between our work, when we're trying to find that right next move, it is very helpful to have a passion project or something that is continuing to hone your skills. It's continuing to like give your mind a purpose and place to go and learn and grow, continue to learn and grow really throughout our lives. And so there's a lot of people that are out of work, and there's a lot of people have been out of work for quite a while too, because it's been a very difficult market over this course of time. And I would like just to say that your example is a great example, and it's something that other people could be looking at for their own selves. If there's some kind of passion project that they love, which could be anything. We're talking could be art, it could be a sports related, it could be music related, just anything that maybe they have been wishing for, thinking about. This is the time to bring in a little project while you're looking for some work. It adds a lot to your life. It's something I highly suggest when we're out there searching.
I completely agree. I can't imagine, like, I didn't set out to do this. I thought maybe I'd get a few people to do Instagram. And then as it took off, and we were really in lockdown. I dove in and I was doing 2 to 3 shows a week, which took an immense amount of time. And I had never done anything like this. I never did it. I don't know. I probably have never done an Instagram live, but I was watching other people do it and was willing to dive in on
Hmm.
that. But I never even got there. I've since done many of them, but yeah, the amount of things I've learned. Yeah, it's just been, yeah, it's, couldn't imagine not having this during the pandemic because I think I would have gone stir crazy too. We were,
Myself as well.
yeah. And I know many people created things like this. So yeah, I'm grateful to the community. Just to think that people are tuning in to something I created really does mean a lot to me.
Oh, it's pretty special. It's very special. Okay, before you go, this has been great, Alan. I would love to ask you one final question. And I'm curious about this because I believe that a lot of us are born with these superpowers, if you will, but that throughout life we develop other superpowers. And I think that we can all develop certain superpowers. So I love to learn, what do you feel is your personal superpower and how has it benefited you in life?
I I've thought about this. I think it's truly my ability to connect with people, people skills. I have had friends from all walks of life that I could probably walk into a room and pick up where we left off with the conversation. I also think, as we were talking about the locker room, I don't think the locker room would be over 500 episodes without the ability for me to connect. I've interviewed over 1,000 people on the show, and just the amount of people I've had to reach out to book the guests.
Right.
I think that doesn't happen naturally. You have to be able to connect in order to not only get people to tune in, but to get those people to want to sit and have a conversation with you.
Absolutely. What helps you connect with people? What do you think helps with that process?
I don't know. The first thing that when you said that, that popped into my mind was to be interested in people.
Right. Just being curious about them.
Yeah, I do for the most part like to meet people and I like to have conversation. I think that's life.
Something I think makes a really big difference, and I've caught on to this because it really makes a big difference in interviewing, and I tell this to senior people, particularly senior level people when they go to interviews, but I think this is just how it is in conversation. I've been thinking a lot about this. This is what we just do in general. I think a lot of times we're spending so much time thinking about what we want to say next that we're not always really paying attention to what the other person is saying and really listening and hearing. And so I've been practicing the I don't have anything to say. I'm not going to worry about what I want to say. I'm going to worry about what this person is saying and if I can learn anything more about what they have to say. And that helps a lot.
And I think you must notice this when you listen to the person you're speaking to, especially doing shows like this, eh, that the conversation just moves along. You are prepared for the interview, but you might mention something that takes the conversation in a completely different direction.
Totally. It keeps the flow going because I noticed when I first started the interview process, I would be more concerned about what I'm going to ask or how am I coming across or is there was concern over in the direction towards me as opposed to concern in the direction towards the person, which is where to have a successful connection, that's where the interest needs to go. That's where the focus needs to be is on the other person. What are they saying? How are they feeling? What are they thinking? What can I learn more about them? Yeah, with what they just said, is there anything else I want to know about that particular topic or that particular story? And
That's
yes,
what I love, the curiosity, because you might have asked them a question and they answered it differently, let's say, than you thought the answer was going to be. So it engages or takes you on a different path in that conversation or show, which I
yeah,
think uh, takes your audience on that ride because it was not planned, spontaneous, takes you sometimes deeper too
yeah,
in
yeah,
whatever you're speaking about. Careers is an important topic. So you never know what might come up because of what I said in response to your question.
exactly. And I love your superpower in general, just because if you can connect with people, every time you connect with someone in an authentic way, they feel seen. And anytime you feel seen in life, you just feel a little bit better. And anytime you just feel a little bit better in life, you move on in life, making other people feel better. so,
Could use
so
a
I'm
lot
going
of
to
that
say,
today.
yes. So I'm going to say thank you for your superpower. Thank you for using it and for spreading some positive ripples into the world with it. So, so this has been great. Thank you so much, Alan. I really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much. So appreciative.
Thank you for joining us on the Career Wanderlust podcast. If you find value in learning from others, give us a like and subscribe. If you're looking to grow your communications, marketing, public relations, or sales and biz dev team with the best talent and quickly, check us out at paradigmstaffing.com and submit a request. We are wishing you a most successful and fulfilling career. Until next time.